here, and then we'll answer any questions that come in on the YouTube live as well. All right. All right. And so we are good to go. I'd like to thank those who are calling in and who are chiming in for joining us this afternoon. We are here with a sister who is an expert in this field, in this topic. What we're talking about today is a play on words, right? The title of today's discussion is Free to Be a Misogynist. Now, obviously, we are not condoning misogynism in any way. We are not condoning, and I just started recording this, so everything that we just set up until this point has gone nowhere. So empezamos de nuevo. Qué jodienda con la tecnología, ¿no? I tell you, this. We laugh, but this is why people can't come up. Yo, we got issues.
That's
We got
true.
issues.
That's true.
Anyway, back to what we are here to do today. The title of today's discussion is Free to Be a Misogynist. Obviously, we are not condoning misogyny. We're not condoning the negative treatment of our sisters on any level, but it is a play on words. One of the things that we want to acknowledge is the fact that too many of our brothers, when they come home, they do so with this attitude against the sisters, against women in general. There is a need, a fever, if you will, to return back to the block to further prove themselves, and in some cases, even make up for lost time. But the time that they served behind the wall in the belly of the beast, they were supported by females on the outside, mothers, sisters, aunts, godmothers, wives, grandmothers. These are the women that day in and day out are raising the family, holding to the household together, ensuring that there's money on the commissary without the kudos of the brother who appeared out of nowhere and put $100 on your box in the 5 years that you did, and now you're foreverly eternally grateful to him, except the woman who was with you for those 5 years and did the bid with you just needs to quote unquote know her place. So today we have Damaris Reyes, who has spent many years as an activist, has worked with at-risk youth on many levels, both affiliated and non-affiliated, well versed in Puerto Rican history, and uh, very involved in the movement for prisoner rights. So I'd like to introduce Damaris. If you could say a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some questions.
Okay. My name is Damaris Reyes. I have been involved in the prison, whether it's through reform or outreach, for about 20 years. I've assisted in one form of another or another about 200 prisoners, whether it's writing, sending books, sending materials, um, faith materials, looking up cases for them if they had emotion, therapist, counselor, whatever, in whatever capacity they needed me to be, for 20 years. And I do that in honor of my brother who passed away in Clinton Correctional Facility on a life sentence. So I'm heavily involved in the prison. I also volunteer through my job to go into the prisons and talk about housing and prisoners' rights with obtaining housing when they, um, when they leave um, prison and come out into the world. So yeah, that's me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you. And there's a lot. Um, I think a lot of times people forget the those who are behind the wall, and obviously not just men, but men and women in general, and not to mention our young brothers and sisters, our future, who find themselves incarcerated for any number of things. And it's very easy to throw a fist in the air and maybe participate in a rally, in a march, and fill out a cardboard with a profound message for the media, but you could have took 10 minutes and scribed somebody behind the
Yeah.
wall, and that serves as a lifeline. I remember for many years we did, through my organization, we did a project where we would actually send cards to the children and gifts to the children of brothers, ancestors who were incarcerated, because we wanted them to be able to have things that, I mean, obviously we weren't buying anybody a PlayStation 5, but if you know, if you needed a bicycle, if there was, you know, if we could help out in any way, and it was done 100% the from the parent who was incarcerated. So rather than sending a kid that card that was stamped with the correctional facilities label, that was tarnished, that was ripped up, that was mishandled, it would send us their message. We would buy a card that they would approve of, fill out the message nicely, write it nicely, send it to the kid, and they were able to have those moments, and it meant a lot, you know. And in another conversation we can have, it means the difference between a war starting in the street and not. You know, somebody can get up in the morning in a cell and not have a bad day, and all of a sudden conflict resolution occurs through dialogue as opposed through fighting. But that's a conversation for another day. So I thank you for the work that you're doing. I want to kind of jump on in, and I want to start with just three simple questions. And the first would be, can you share the experience of supporting a man who is incarcerated on a personal level for yourself? What are the trials and tribulations you endure both during the time that you are supporting them and upon their release, both from friends and family during and post, and then from the individual during post? What are the changes? What do you see happening? Where do you see those transitions, and how do you deal with them?
So, on a personal level, because all of these relationships were personal, even though they were brothers or sisters, they were still personal. It's really hard to support someone mentally and spiritually while they and emotionally while they are in prison. Because um, they're not at liberty to say, "Oh, I'm having a bad day," or they don't feel like they can. They have to maintain this persona, this image while they're in there. And so it's hard for them to openly speak about what's bothering them, what's going on. If they're having problems with their baby's mom or their girlfriend or their fiance or their wife or their moms, or they need this, they need that. It's really hard for the majority of them to open up and speak. And so that creates this air of machismo, um, where they can be like bullyish. They can bully. They'll start to bully you if you allow it. If they feel that you're a very sympathetic person, someone who has a lot of empathy, someone who is considerate, they'll try to bully you, and you have to kind of like be like, hold on a second. I'm here because I want to be, not because I need to be. I'm here for you because I want to be here. And that's the difference. A lot of people feel like they have this sense of self-entitlement, that you're supposed to do these things. And you're not if it's going to compromise your mental, spiritual, or emotional self. So on a personal level, I could tell you that there's been times where I've had to put people on timeout. I just have someone on timeout now because Madsolavo, and I don't tolerate disrespect. And so if I'm there for you and I am mentally and emotionally and spiritually holding you down, and I am making sure that you have material to read, and you have a plan in place for your exit out of prison, and you're thinking about your goal. What's your 1 year goal? What's your 5 year goal? And I'm acting as a mentor for you, and I'm just putting everything into perspective for you. You got to watch the way you talk to me, because I don't have to do that. I can just focus on my family, my personal friends, and people who are in my life, and not have to deal with that. So you have to be firm in dealing with people who are incarcerated, because there's like 3 stages. And the first stage is, I don't deserve to be here. I didn't do this, or I did this for the nation, or I did this for the block, or I did this for this. They did it for everybody, but because they did it because they chose to do it. And you got to deal with that. And then you have to deal with just their anger, because things aren't coming out the way that they want. Maybe they got more time than they thought they were going to get, or maybe the people that they thought were real close to them abandoned them. So then they go through that, and then finally, some of them, not all of them, go through that resolution, and okay, this is what I'm going to do when I get out. This is my plan. you know some guys are just they're just not going to change. They have that mindset, and they're very misogynistic, and it's because they don't have a father. They have mommy issues. They feel that false sense of entitlement because their mom was that strong woman, or their grandmother was that strong woman and held the household down. And instead of seeing that as a positive thing, they feel like they're entitled to having a woman under them doing things for them because their mother or their grandmother did it because they needed to provide for that family. So that backfires on being. But yeah, that's uh that's
And
my personal.
what are some of the issues that you have endured when it comes to the family component? I mean, one of the things that I think people forget about is when someone's incarcerated, whether or not they're doing that bid behind the wall by themselves or with a co-defendant or not, there is an entire community that is suffering alongside with them. Mothers, brothers, fathers, siblings, whatnot. And it's crazy because we see in our community on one hand the ay bendito nadie me va a ayudar, and then on the other hand, why are you helping that person? Why are you wasting your time?
Yeah.
So can you speak to some of the experiences you've had dealing with family members or even friends, maybe even spouses or even your children that may say, oh, you know what, why are you wasting your time? We got better things to do.
I'm actually going through that right now. My fiance is in prison, and he's looking at a life sentence, and I have a lot of that. And his family is extremely supportive. Like he has an awesome family. Um, but I do hear comments, and I have people saying, "Oh, why are you doing this, or why are you with him, or why are you waiting, or that's crazy, or without understanding that number one is none of your business, and number two, it's none of your business, and to each his own. If two individuals have been brought together, regardless of time or distance, you know, that's just what it is. And I think that a lot of women start to feel intimidated by that. I think that if I didn't have the mental mindset that I do, it would bother me, but it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to give me your opinion, though, unless I ask for it. So, yeah, you're welcome.
And thank you, yes, thank you. And so with that being said, what do we hear, you mentioned that you provide reading material. You mentioned that you provide study material. And obviously, there's a lot of terms that get thrown around that I think need to be fleshed out, and I don't think our community necessarily does a great job in fleshing them out. We use what I call big people words, oppressed, institutionalized, capitalism, colonialism, and these terms that so many times they get converted into this get out of jail free card. It's like, I'm arguing with you because I didn't get the milk, and now you coming at me because I knew I was supposed to get the milk and I did it. You know what? I'm institutionalized and you're not gonna impress me. And it becomes this question of, you're like, what, I don't even understand what you're trying to say.
Right?
How would you how and I'm sure you have to deal with that on a regular basis, because again, it's something that I don't think the problem is ever understanding what is right. I think the problem is understanding and accepting how long we've been wrong. You see what I'm saying? And there's a big difference. So there's a rock in your shoe. You've been limping for decades. And then you meet somebody and you're like, oh, yeah, I have a limp. That's what I do. I'm Damaris and I limp. And they're like,
Right.
can I see your shoe? Did you know there was a rock in it? Let me take the rock out for you. Well, now you immediately feel better, but your brain instantly says, espérate. For the last 20 years, your ass been limping. You done missed the quinceañera de la nena, this vacation, this trip, you lost this job. Tú no vas a ser la pendeja that missed all that shit for a rock. So you're just gonna immediately say, tú crees que tú me conoces? You don't know shit about me. That rock don't mean nothing. I'm still limping. And it's
Hmm.
because the truth is so small and so black and white and so simple that the questions people have been asking and the problems they've been creating are so grandiose. So how do you combat this notion of, yo, I'm sorry, ma, I didn't mean to come out of pocket. It's just, yo, I'll be institutionalized. And you know what I'm saying? The man's trying to hold me down and do. How do you address those terms when it comes to personal relations?
An apology without change behavior is an insult. That's it. You have to have action. And I also tell people that tú no te manda, like you don't own yourself or your life. You know how people be like, it's my life. No, it's not. What you do directly affects people in your life, whether it's future, whether it's present. So in essence, your life doesn't belong to you. It's not your own. And so that's number one. Number two, I just I have a problem with disrespect. And I don't care if it's a brother, if it's a sister, if it's a family member, because you have to teach people how to treat you. And so you have to from the very beginning. And I'm a nice person. I am a really nice person, but I will not tolerate disrespect, especially if I'm looking out for you. I'm holding you up because I'm not holding you down. I'm lifting you up. I'm the reason why you're leveling up. I'm introducing you to different concepts, and I'm sending you books that are just opening up your minds because a lot of our brothers and sisters are mad ignorant and they're stagnant. And so if I want to say that I am helping my community, then I have to help my brothers and sisters. I got to elevate and bring them with me. So I have to provide them with that reading material. I have to show them what our history is. I have to, you know, I have a shirt that one of the revolutionary brothers I know made me, and it says, "Who is Albizu Campos?" And I wear that shirt, and I ask people, and they don't know. And our history is so important, especially when you have people who are in there and they say, "Well, I did this for the nation," or "I'm here because of this, because of that," and they don't know anything about your culture, your history. Our people were some very, very proud people who sacrificed so much and you know, who gave so much of themselves so that we could be here today. And it's just like we kill each other, we disrespect each other. Our brothers our brothers mainly call the sisters bitches and hoes, and it's just such a disrespect on a human level. It's disgusting. And so it all boils down to that. If I'm reaching out across to lift you up and bring you with me, then there's a level of respect. And I don't care what you're doing in there. I don't care if you're alone or not. If you're going to disrespect, that bite the hand that feeds you, if you're going to bite the hand that's feeding you knowledge and giving you love and teaching you about self love, because a lot of us don't know how to love ourselves, then you need to respect and honor who's doing that for you because they don't have to do that. And it's just having those conversations. And I openly have conversations like that with everyone that I encounter, whether they're incarcerated or in a halfway house. This is how I expect to be treated by you, and this is how I'm going to treat you. And once you lay that foundation down, if they can't respect that, then they don't deserve to have your energy. And that's just it. And
Absolutely.
everyone's not like that. Everyone's not like that. I've had people I've had to cut off because they have that, they're very misogynistic, and they're like, the way that they come at you and then they say, "Oh, I'm sorry," but they continue with the behavior. And so if we're doing corrective behavior, then and you continue to do it, then I don't need to be in your presence. That's it. I'm going to eliminate myself from your presence, and you figure it out on your own. And I think that a lot of women, we try to save men. We try to, I could save them, I could fix them. And you can't. You can't. You can't breathe life into somebody who is taking all your air, you know?
Absolutely. You mentioned Albisu, the perfect example of someone who, for as much as people think they are clandestine, for as much as people think, you remember back in the day, we're old enough to remember the next tale chirp chirps, and people
Yes.
used to be like, "Oye, háblame en español que los federales están
Uh-huh.
escuchando," and
Right.
I'm like, so the feds don't speak Spanish,
Right. Duh.
if you have to start the conversation with a code, this is not a conversation we need to be having on the phone.
Hmm.
But you look at somebody like Albisu, who has a documented history. Albisu, for those of you who don't know, used to get he was incarcerated. So let's look at that. First Puerto Rican to graduate Harvard. He is documented as saying, "I was called a nigger before I was called a spick." He graduates Harvard. He becomes the president of the Partido Nacional de Puerto Rico, for the liberation of Puerto Rico. As he's on what we would now call parole, right, or house arrest, he's allowed to get one haircut every week or every 2 weeks, and the barber actually cuts a hole in the wall of the bathroom so that Albizu can get a haircut. They have 22 minutes to get his haircut. They cut his hair in a specific amount of time. He goes to the bathroom every time because the apartment next to the barber shop is rented by members of the party. He's allowed, he has a 5 minute meeting, clandestine. Nobody knows. Everything is timed. He gets a haircut. He goes to the bathroom. He sneaks over to the next room. He has a quick 5 minute meeting and he comes back out. Here is an example of someone who, for all practical purposes, olvídate de institutionalized. They killed him in jail. They let him out
Mm-hmm.
to die, but they killed him in jail. So, what do you think happened between the point in our community where incarceration didn't break the mindset. It didn't break the Mandelas. It didn't break the Castros. It didn't break the Albisus. But now our brothers don't seem to get it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
again, that's a loaded one, right? There's no. If we had the answer to that, Demaris, then we'd be curing everybody's issue. But it is just something to think about. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you froze. I know the storm is hitting you. Are you there? Are you there? Are you there? Are you there?
them back then too.
There. Oh, wait a minute.
That's
We
yeah,
lost you for a minute. You froze up. What was that?
that's it's a hard that's a hard question to answer because
Oh, we're losing you again. Hold on.
I don't understand.
Hey, you're coming out. You're coming in and out.
How
I
about?
know that I know that you're getting some rough weather over there. And
Yeah,
again,
we are.
I thank you so much for the time and the energy that you're sharing. And I think that's one of the things that our people need to understand. This right here, this dialogue, this open communication, being able to sit down and understand simply because of your situation does not make you any less human. And one of the things that I think our brothers need to understand is it is okay to express gratitude. It is okay to express love and vulnerability. And I know that some people may have a problem with the word vulnerability, but the reality is when a brother comes back from being locked up and is running to be in the streets, that's not an appreciation of the brothers.
There,
Oh,
you
you just
can.
hold on. You just came back in. Hold on. Are you there? Yes, no? Hello? No, we don't hear you. No.
Okay.
There you go.
All right.
All right. So, when it comes to these brothers rushing to get back into the street and rushing to get back onto the block, I don't believe it's a matter of appreciation. I believe it's a matter of them believing they are owing something to everybody else. And I think that we really need to learn how to define family and community again from square zero. I think that we have lost our way on so many different levels when it comes to family and community that our people are surviving, they're not living. And in survival mode, every day is an individualized experiment, and they don't connect Monday to Tuesday and Tuesday to Wednesday. It just becomes another day that they're breathing. And I think that's problematic. But the question I pose to you is not one that we could answer. If we could answer it, then we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. But it is food for thought. Okay. What advice would you give to women who find themselves in relationships with men who are incarcerated?
I would say not every, first and foremost, we need to understand that there are a lot of men in prison, just like there are women in prison, who take advantage of men and women. So let's just throw that out there. Okay. Um, there might be a man who's talking to five women at one time, and that's just their hustle. Okay. That's what they do. And that's just, it is what it is. But if you find a man who's a good man, who's someone that you're vibing with, who's someone that you've connected with, who's someone that you see yourself, spending your life with, or it's to that level, you have to set ground rules. It's important to have somebody know up front, this is what I will tolerate, this is what I will not tolerate. um you don't own me, number one. So don't check for me, like I'm gonna be where I'm at, basically, because trust is such an important thing in any relationship, more so when you're dealing with someone who's incarcerated. They have time, they get locked down, they're in their cell, the mind just wanders, and before you know it, they've created scenarios in their mind that's just crazy, you know? And so trust is so important. And so is respect. And I understand that because we're human beings. And so we all go through periods of time where we're frustrated, or, we've had a bad day, or just things just don't go the way that you want it. And you have this person who calls you and you need to vent, and you know that you can vent with them. But you have to say that in the beginning. Like, you don't just accept the call and all of a sudden they're just, "Rah," because nobody wants that. Like, nobody wants to read an email or to receive a phone call, and someone's yelling, or, you know, you have to say, "Bájame el tono," like, watch how you talk to me, buddy. And so it all boils down to communication. Communication is one of the most important things in the world, and we don't do it enough. We have to agree to disagree. We have to agree that, we're human. And as human beings, we're going to have off days, but it doesn't give you the right to disrespect or to mentally, emotionally, or spiritually abuse someone who's there with you or who's there for you because you've had issues with women in the past, or you've had issues with, or you don't like your mother, or, you're in prison, or that just doesn't give you the right or the excuse to treat somebody who's there for you on so many levels bad. That's it. So I can't hear you.
Okay, you hear me now?
Okay. Now I can
Yeah, I
hear you.
said I know we've got some time to cover yet, but I want to be respectful of the situation that you got going over there with the weather, and what, this is clearly not a topic that one conversation is not going to solve it. The main point of this is to get people to understand that they're not alone, that they need to, like you said, communicate, and the communication component, not just with brothers behind the wall and sisters who are holding them down, not just with when they're released, but in general. I think that our community has a tendency to be too reactionary. We don't want to communicate until there's nothing left for us to do. We don't want
Mm-hmm.
to we don't want to reach for the fire extinguisher until the house is blown up, and then we want to know why we lost everything. So I think that, and that communication goes two ways. I think that it's not just male female, but male male, female female. And it's something that how we communicate internally is definitely projected. You mentioned earlier, you have to set those ground rules. You have to sit down and be like, yo, you're not gonna call me out my name. You're not gonna disrespect me. Bájame el bo, bájame el tono. And how do you, as a woman in this time, what is your opinion on outside influences such as movies, music? When we don't know how to communicate with each other in a non-amorous way, it's going to affect how we communicate in an amorous way, in a professional way. I see people all the time. I had a young brother tell me the other day, I didn't get this job mission. I don't know what happened. I went there, I was ready, I was looking real nice. And he told me he was looking nice 5 times. I said, brother, what did you wear to the job interview? And he was like, yo, I wore this fly ass shirt. You know what I'm saying? I spent like $60 on it. And I was like, the price of the shirt does not make it professional attire, you know? And I said, send me a picture of what you wore. And it was a t-shirt he paid $60 for.
Oh,
Tim's that he paid $200 for, and jeans that he paid $80 for. I said, I wouldn't have even let you in. I wouldn't have let you in the interview, let alone not give you the job. So I don't think our people are really emphasizing on the importance of communication. But what are you, as a woman in this day and age, how do you respond to the language that is deemed acceptable by mainstream media, by female artists, by the music industry, so forth and so on.
So, first and foremost, when I started my job 26 years ago, I'm going to tell you that I went to work the first day with a green feli suit on and some hoop earrings. And this was corporate America. Okay. And I had my coworker at the time, fellow, Puerto Rican man from New York. And he said, Mama, you can't come to work like that. And I was like, why not? This is really nice. He was like, no, you're not in the projects. So that was like my first exposure to like the real world, right? Because we live in these clusters of communities and we're not taught about proper attire. We're not taught how to articulate. We're not taught how to we're not taught about credit. We're not taught about how to dress for success or how to write, or you go through school, you get your diploma, but that's the extent of it. And if you look back in the 60s and the 70s, people dressed sharp. They looked nice. When you went to church, you looked nice. You looked presentable.
There were the shoes
And
for outside and the shoes for inside.
exactly. And
Right.
and you had your hair up and there was the you had que ahora sí la gente, and you had this way of life that was taught by your elders, and we've lost that sense of community. We've lost our way in that aspect. Now you have these guys whose pants hang beneath their butt. You know what I'm saying? It drives me nuts. And you have, is it's okay to say, nigga, bitch, like that's just acceptable. That's it. That's and that's the way we communicate. And I was taught by a friend of mine from Chicago who said, I'll be like, that's my nigga, and then I'll be like, fuck that nigga. You know what I'm saying? Like that word, that's not a good word. That's not a good word to teach your children to use, and I'm guilty. I use it de vez en cuando. Se me sale el proyecto and I freaking use it. And it's a daily struggle and a daily task to work on yourself. If you work on yourself and you are a reflection of the right path of righteousness, then you can actually show other people by the way that you carry yourself and conduct yourself the proper way. Because everyone's looking for someone to, to look at and say, okay, I want to be like this person, or this person did it. And we don't have enough hood success with people like making it out, going into corporate America, making six figures. And if they do, they forget about the hood and they never look back, because that's a stain that they don't want to remember. I think as a community, we have to get back to, it takes a village. We have to get back to correcting each other in a respectful way. We have to get back to holding people accountable. And we have to work on ourselves first, because we can't hold a mirror without looking at ourselves in the mirror first. And we have a bad habit of doing that. And there's no one to blame. When you're little, your parents raise you. And then as you become an adult, you're an adult. You are accountable for your actions. We can't blame the media. We can't blame, a video game. We can't blame music. We can't, because that's a fool's way out. It's so easy to say, oh, I was listening to this music and I just started, doing this. No, you have to be accountable for your actions, because you're the person who's directing your life. And we have to bring that message. We have to bring that message. And I don't know how we do that except having conversations like this. But
Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah,
And I think even when we're having conversations, it's such a multi-layered process, right? We
yeah.
have to sit down and communicate. We have to first define communication, then we have to acknowledge how deficient we are in our communication skills. I tell people all the time, just because you think you had a conversation with somebody doesn't mean you actually did. What was the
Mhm,
content? If the content was, yo, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because you know what I'm saying? Because that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that. You're
mhm,
not saying anything,
mhm,
and I think that if we really link all those things together, you made a point a few seconds ago about the people who have made it in the six-figure salary. I think we need to also define what success is, and understand that communally, it's not a one size fits all, right? We can't
Hmm.
look at the brother that's working at McDonald's and say, hey man, you could do better. For all you know, his plan is to open up a franchise of
Hmm.
McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? And he's starting to with the fries, and eventually his 10-year plan is to own 3 McDonald's. In the town that I live in, we have 3 McDonald's, all owned by the same woman who has a GED, never went to college,
Nice.
worked in McDonald's when she was in high school, doing the fries, moved up, came to this town, and franchised out. And all three of
Nice.
them she owns, and she still to this day goes into work to them. Obviously, whichever one she wants to, when she doesn't have a regular shift.
Yeah.
But she's still in that work mode, and to her that's success. We have to be careful how we define success, because somebody
Yeah.
could come and tell her, "Well, you don't want ever want to get to the point where you don't have to get up and go to work." For all you know, that's what's keeping her alive. You see what I'm saying? And it becomes
Yeah.
a question of how we are communicating and how we articulate certain things, and like you with the green fila sweatsuit and hoop earrings, in your mind, yo, I look fly. I'm this is expensive, this is good shit, and I'm
This is
going to work.
nice.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's the same concept with this brother who was like, yo, mission, I was on it, man. I was ready for this job interview and I was looking nice, I was looking good. But at no point in time did you say professional. You know what I'm saying? And how do we define professional? I had a human resources guy tell me, Jesus, about 20 something years ago, pull me in his office. I worked for a trade school at the time, and he said, you will never be professional in their eyes. And obviously, you can assume who theirs eyes he was talking about. And I said, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And he says, you could wear a tuxedo and it wouldn't matter. The way the clothes hang off your body, the way your hair grows, the way your eyes twitch, the way your skin color shines in the light, brother, you will never be professional to them because you're not them. And if you continue to try to be professional to them, you will never be professional to yourself, because you will gauge your level of success by how they see you. He says that you're never going to be successful until you see yourself as successful. And I think that's something that we really need to remember when it comes to how we're communicating with our young brothers and sisters. Um, what kind of a future are we laying down for them? And then we see that regression. And I know you've experienced this, where you're talking to somebody who's 40, 50 years old, but who's talking back to you as somebody who's 15, 16, because they're
Yep.
emotionally stunted at whatever last trauma transpired.
Yeah.
And if we don't address those things proactively, I think that we'll continue to go round and round and be 360 in the wrong way. Um, so yeah, so I mean, I think there's a lot of layers to this, but you bring up such wonderful points, and above everything else that you're saying, the example you provide to any sister who sees this video and understands, yo, it's not okay. Because how many brothers have not told them, this is just how it is because I'm locked down and you got to just deal with it. This is just who I am, or this is just how I talk, or this is just how I do people. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I think
It
that's
doesn't.
an important lesson, that we need to learn and we need to live by, right?
Yeah.
Because our community cannot afford to keep playing that card of do as I say, not as I do.
And we need to break them curses. There's generational curses. There's, like I was telling you earlier, 1 in 3 Black men, 1 in 6 Latino men are going to go to prison.
Hmm.
So knowing that my nephew is in prison and I raised him, he's in prison for 25 years flat for murder. No good time, no nothing. 25 years flat, And so, yeah, you're going to have someone in your family, someone they're going to be in prison. That's just, and that's sad, but that's just it. We got to break those generational curses. We got to start reaching back and showing people that you don't have to hang out, you don't have to sell drugs. And when you get out of jail, don't go to the block. A condition of your parole or your probation says you can't hang around criminals. You've already violated. You've
Hmm.
already violated. And anyone who asks you to go report or go here, go there, they don't care about you, because someone who really cared about you cares about your success. And it's just having those types of conversations with people so that they understand that, you know, Because a lot of people don't know that. Something as simple as that. When you get out of prison, you can't go back on the block. You're violating your probation. You're violating your parole. It
Hmm.
says it. That's one of the conditions. You cannot hang around gang members or criminals. And there you go. You know? And it's just a vicious cycle. They violate, they go back. I'm gonna do good next time, blah 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 blah. And then silent, they go back. You know? And in the whole process, the kids suffer. It's the kids.
Right, and then
It's the
and what the
kids who
kid is
suffer.
seeing, and what the kid is seeing is daddy came home,
Yeah.
or what really pisses me off is when the kid is small, right?
Mm-hmm.
And tu padre está de vacaciones. Oh, my
En el
dad's on
colegio.
vacation. Yeah, well, I never heard colegio. That's a
Oh
new one for
yeah.
me. I've
Yeah.
heard está de vacaciones, and then now the guy comes home, and now the kid is like, "Oh, my dad's been on a trip." Well, you don't got no time for your kid, but you also don't know your kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the kid is like, "Well, wherever the hell my dad went, it must not be too bad because
It keeps going, right?
it keeps going back." So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go back in. Pues sí, Damari, thank you so much for your
Thank
time,
you.
for your wisdom, for your energy, for the work that you're doing
Thank you.
with our brothers who are behind the wall and our sisters who are behind the wall. We continue to have these conversations on any platform that we can, on any stage that we can, and in every phone call that we have with people. And I think that ultimately our community will find a way to wake up. The question is, what are we going to be waking up to? Are we going to be waking up to an environment where we do have a chance to thrive, or are we going to be waking up to an environment that is beyond our level of survival? A lot of times people say, "Oh, well, I'm oppressed, and the system's trying to oppress me." And I tell people all the time, there's one thing you need for oppression to exist, and that is for the oppressor to understand the potency that the
Mm-hmm.
oppressed have before they do.
Yep.
So if you are moving forward and you are constantly dealing with demons that are internal, external, individuals, circumstance, when the universe is pushing back at you, we got to stop and realize all of these regressive traits that I have babied and pampered and fed and grown with are facing eviction, because that's what knowledge is going to do. It's going to evict
Mm-hmm.
those bad habits. That's what growth is going to do. It's going to evict those bad habits. It's going to evict those demons. It's going to evict those titans. We need them because we need balance, right? We can't eradicate them. We have to control them. And what happens, I tell people, it's not that you took one step forward and two steps back. It's that you took a step forward, and those steps that were behind you realized they were going to get evicted. So they tried to pull you back. And if
Mm-hmm.
you stop and realize, man, the harder something is pushing against you for you to fail, that just means you are that strong that you can make it.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the problem is everything else is realizing that strength before we are as a community, you know. Pero like I said, it's always beautiful to talk to you, hermanita. I'm always welcome those conversations. Continue to do what you do. My love to the fam, and like I said, we're gonna put this video out there. Hopefully, people listen to it, and I believe that regardless of whether we reach 1,000 people or we just exist on a platform, as long as we continue to produce resources for our community, there's stuff in the toolbox that they could reach for. They may not reach for
Yep.
it today, but at least it'll be there waiting for them.
Well, we
So,
have one. So it's each one reach one, teach one, and we have one.
absolutely, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And oh, we got a few on the YouTube también. They, thumbing up. I'm so bad at this social media thing. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm trying. Look, I'm happy I was able to log into Zoom. So how about that?
Right.
Pues sí, mija. So listen, do your thing. Un fuerte abrazo. Be safe out there with the storm.
I will.
What they call the Elsa. So si te vas a tratar
Elsa. Yeah,
frozen
yeah.
and
Frozen. Yeah.
desatando, yeah. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
So un fuerte abrazo, un amor, and I will
More.
talk to you soon. Okay.